Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India highlights Mumbai attack as turning point in New Delhi-Islamabad ties. Baloch long march in Toronto demands justice, global action against Pakistan. And India foils major infiltration bid in Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua, exposes Pakistan's terror route. India has long borne the brunt of cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan, a threat that continues to shape its foreign policy today. Recently, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar drew attention to the enduring scars of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, calling it a turning point in India's approach towards its western neighbour. In a blunt message, he exposed Pakistan's double game, sponsoring terror while feigning diplomacy, and warned that old habits have returned to haunt Islamabad. As India rises on the global stage with innovation and credibility, Pakistan finds itself cornered by the very forces it once nurtured.
India's concerns over Pakistan-sponsored terrorism remain as pressing today as they were in the past. From cross-border infiltrations to the backing of terror networks, Pakistan has consistently been accused of fueling instability in the region. Reflecting this long-standing challenge, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar recently emphasized that the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks were a defining moment in India's relationship with Pakistan. He explained that the horrific events of that day deeply affected the Indian psyche and marked a shift in the country's stand towards its neighbor. However, reflecting on the long-standing tensions, he noted that Pakistan continues to follow a negative approach in its dealings with India.
They unfortunately are in many ways continuing the bad habits. They are continuing a very negative way of approaching India. And what has happened is today, I think, when I look back, I would say the 26/11 Mumbai terrorist attack, I would regard it in many ways as the turning point. After 2014, when the government changed, this message has been very firm with Pakistan, which is that terrorism, if acts of terrorism are committed, there will be consequences.
Pakistan's decades-long strategy of supporting extremist groups while maintaining diplomatic ties with global powers has often been called out as a dangerous double game. This approach, aimed at leveraging terror groups for regional influence, however, has now begun to backfire. This was precisely the point raised by Jaishankar, who said Pakistan's reliance on terror networks like the Taliban eventually backfired, creating a blowback that now threatens its own stability.
So Pakistan was playing a double game. It was with the Taliban and the Afghan, those opposed to the Americans, and it was also playing with. Now, every double game comes to an end. Ab unka bhi wahi hua. That some stage the Americans said, ab bahut ho gaya, we are leaving. Now, when they left, the double game could not be sustained. So, whatever benefits they were getting out of the double game, that also went down. In fact, then they discovered they had a further problem, which was the very people, the very terrorism industry, which they had followed, came back to bite them. That today they are facing, the actions of people whom they promoted. So, from their point of view, you can say old habits have continued.
As India strengthens its global image through innovation and technology, Pakistan continues to be associated with extremism and terror networks.
We have gone up to a higher level. We are today, if you go out in the world, it's a joke, but it's not really a joke, which is the sense that IT for India means information technology, for Pakistan means international terrorism. So that sense today that their branding, that terrorism chap has stuck to them. Today our branding is a technology branding. And I think that is the difference.
India's message remains clear. Terrorism as a tool of state policy is unacceptable and will invite consequences. As the global narrative shifts, Pakistan finds itself increasingly isolated, while India moves ahead as a trusted, forward-looking partner on the world stage.
For decades, the cries for justice from Pakistan's Balochistan province have echoed across borders, marked by stories of forced disappearances, state-backed atrocities, and silenced dissent. Now, those voices are growing louder on the global stage. In a powerful act of resistance and solidarity, the streets of Toronto witnessed a long march led by the Baloch Human Rights Council of Canada. The message was clear: justice for Balochistan, freedom for Mahrang Baloch, and accountability for Pakistan. Here's more on the protest and growing international outcry.
For decades, the Baloch people have raised their voices against enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and systemic oppression in Pakistan Balochistan province. The movement for justice has gained global support as reports of human rights violation continue to surface. In a powerful display of solidarity, the Baloch Human Rights Council of Canada organized a long march in Toronto. The rally was held in support of Dr. Mahrang Baloch and other Baloch activists who have been unlawfully detained by Pakistani authorities. The protesters called for the immediate release of all detained activists and urged the international community to hold Pakistan accountable for its actions in Balochistan.
We were gathered here today to express our concern on the arrest and imprisonment of a human rights defender, Dr. Mahrang Baloch, who is a big voice in Balochistan for the enforced disappearances, against the enforced disappearances and the atrocities committed by the state of Pakistan in Balochistan. She has been imprisoned when she was protesting outside the hospital where the bodies of many people were brought over there, dead people, and the families were concerned that they belong to the enforced disappeared people who are being tortured and executed.
With banners, placards and chants calling for freedom and justice, the demonstrators aim to shed light on what they describe as the ongoing persecution of Baloch voices by the Pakistani state.
Our arrest is not a just attack on Dr. Mahrang Baloch. This is an attack on all voices of justice, peace and resistance in Balochistan. Let me be clear, this is not a first time Pakistan is committing crimes in Balochistan. Since 1948, when Pakistan illegally, forcefully occupied the Balochistan, from that day till now, people of Balochistan facing human rights and justices, enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killing, systematic genocide.
The rally sent a strong message to Canadian lawmakers and international observers, urging them to step beyond statements of concern and take tangible diplomatic action.
I'm here to stand beside my Baloch friends to demand the release of Mahrang Baloch.
We stand solidarity with the Balochistan people We want all international community and everybody to put pressure on the Afghan government to release Dr. Mahrang Baloch.
The Long March in Toronto was not just a protest, it was a global conscience to act. As voices from around the world join in solidarity, the demand for justice in Balochistan grows louder and harder to ignore.
Another wave of bloodshed has gripped Pakistan's Balochistan province as a deadly bombing targeted a police convoy in Mastung district, killing 3 and injuring many. The attack is the latest chapter in a long-running insurgency rooted in decades of anger, alienation and state violence. As Baloch fighters escalate their campaign against what they call colonial occupation, Islamabad's harsh crackdowns have only widened the gulf. In a region rich in resources but starved of rights, the struggle in Balochistan is not just political, it's existential. Here's a full report. Violence returned to Pakistan's restive Balochistan province on April 15th, when a remote control bomb tore through a police truck in Mastung district's Dasht area. The truck, carrying personnel of the Balochistan Constabulary, was en route from Kalat to the provincial capital Quetta when the attack occurred. The explosion killed at least 3 police personnel on the spot and injured 18 others. All the injured were rushed to the Bolan Medical College Hospital for urgent treatment.
18 जख्मी हैं और 3 शहीद हुए। ये हमारा कलास से नफरी आई हुई थी धरना ड्यूटी के लिए, जिसको हम डेली भेजते थे। खंड मसूरी लेवीज का एरिया है, वहाँ सुबह को 30 बंदे जाते थे बस सरकारी में, शाम को 5 बजे वापस आते 6 बजे। आज भी उस मामूल के मुताबिक ड्यूटी पे रवाना हुए, रास्ते में एक मोटरसाइकिल था, उसमें बम निकला, रिमोट कंट्रोल हमला हुआ।
While no group has claimed responsibility for the bombing, the Baloch Liberation Army, or BLA, remains the most active and formidable insurgent group operating in the region. For decades, Baloch separatists have waged an armed struggle against the Pakistani state, accusing it of colonizing the mineral-rich province and denying its people basic rights. Just last month, ethnic Baloch fighters launched a bold attack on a passenger train carrying 450 people, triggering a 2-day siege that resulted in dozens of deaths. In fact, more than 200 people, mostly security personnel, have been killed in militant attacks this year alone in both Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
The increased attacks in Balochistan are a result of several things. The first thing has been that, the Pakistani state has been weakening. It is on the verge of bankruptcy. It is bankrupt for all intents and purposes. This is number one. So, the plunder by the military has also increased because you're looking at limited resources and resource competition. And so, the rapine nature of the military, it's always been a grab and seize kind of military has increased. What has become worse, of course, is the fact that China is also exploiting all these resources. They've got a port at Gwadar and things like that. So this has added very, very significantly to the Baloch sense of alienation. And it has also added to repression out there. So obviously, when you have this much repression happening, it is going to be a lot more... the resistance to that is also going to increase. That is the main thing that has happened out there.
The roots of this conflict date back to 1948, when Pakistan forcibly annexed the sovereign state of Kalat, igniting a long and bloody insurgency that continues to this day. Balochistan, despite being the largest and most resource-rich province, remains Pakistan's poorest and most neglected region. Its gas fields fuel the rest of the country, but its own people live in darkness, denied development, dignity and democracy. Islamabad's response has been one of iron-fisted repression. Enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings and brutal military operations have become routine. The Pakistani army and intelligence agencies have used kill and dump tactics to silence dissent, often targeting students, journalists, and activists.
Some cases has been responsible for the killing of young students. These are university going students in Punjab or even in Balochistan or in Sindh. They are picked up from their hostels and tortured, sometimes released, sometimes they disappear forever, and other times they are killed in cold blood and their bodies are thrown to make an example of them. So we've not seen the Baloch do this. They have attacked who they call agents of the Pakistani state and whom they consider to be legitimate targets. That sometimes includes the Punjabis who are settlers in Balochistan, whom the Baloch consider to be agents of the Pakistan government.
For many in Balochistan, the insurgency is no longer just about political rights. It is a fight for survival, justice, and identity. The Pakistani state's unyielding brutality has only deepened the chasm, fueling a cycle of violence that shows no sign of ending. In a significant breakthrough in India's relentless fight against terrorism, India's security forces in Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua district have dealt a major blow to Pakistan-backed infiltration attempts. With 4 fierce encounters in just over a month, the operations have not only neutralized infiltrating terrorists, but also exposed the traditional infiltration route used from across the international border. As India strengthens its counter-terrorism framework, Pakistan once again stands exposed for its continued export of terror into Indian soil.
In a sharp escalation of anti-terror operations, security forces in Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua district have successfully foiled a major terror plot orchestrated from across the border. A total of 4 encounters have taken place in the region within the past month, killing at least 4 heavily armed terrorists who had infiltrated Indian territory with the aim to execute mass casualty attacks. Critically, these encounters have exposed a traditional infiltration route used by Pakistani terrorists, one that cuts through the international border in the Kathua district, allowing infiltrators to enter the dense forested areas like Sanyal and Safian and further attempt to melt into the hinterland. The most recent operation on March 27 in the Safian forest saw 2 terrorists gunned down by the alert security personnel. This came just days after another infiltration bid was intercepted in the Sanyal forest area, an operation that tragically claimed the lives of 4 brave police personnel.
There is no denying of the fact that international border is being used because your neighboring country has a mission to push in terrorists whenever they get opportunity. So there is a launching pad across the IB sector, across Hiranagar, across Kathua and Samba area. So sometimes they use tunnels, sometimes they cut the fencing and manage to come inside. So this recent encounter has actually helped to understand from which route they have entered. So luckily we were able to eliminate 2 terrorists. Other 3 have managed to escape. I think very soon they are being tracked down.
The seizures from the encounter sites are damning. 2 AK series assault rifles, an M4 carbine, hand grenades, high-end navigation equipment and Pakistani manufactured supplies, all pointing to direct Pakistani involvement in the operation. Some of the items recovered, including heroin and food rations, reveal not only preparation for long-term sabotage, but also links to narco-terrorism, a strategy long deployed by Pakistani terror outfits to finance and facilitate insurgency in the region.
तब पीछे हमारे बहादुर लड़कों ने जेकेपी के बहादुर लड़कों ने 2 टेररिस्ट को मार गिराया, उसमें हमारी भी 4 लोगों की शहादत हुई. उन्हीं जो ब्रेव करेजियस बहादुर लड़के हैं, उन्होंने ये 2 टेररिस्ट को उनके जो नापाक इरादे थे उसमें विफल किया है, और उसी के साथ हमने उनका बहुत सारा सामान रिकवर किया था। उसमें उनका लॉन्ग टर्म सस्टेनेंस के लिए तरह तरह के विंटर क्लोथिंग, फर्स्ट एड किट्स, ऑटोमेटिक वेपन्स, उन पे लगी आधुनिक साइट्स, ये सारी चीज़ें हम लोगों ने रिकवर कर ली हैं। तो ऑलरेडी जो है उनका काफ़ी सारा जो प्लान है वो शुरू में ही हम लोगों ने ख़त्म कर दिया है। तो जो इससे हमें और भी यकीन आया है कि जो बचे हुए टेररिस्ट हैं वो उसी इलाके में फंसे हुए हैं और उनको भी हम जल्दी न्यूट्रलाइज कर देंगे। उनसे हमें चिट्टे जैसा एक सामान मिला है, करीब 50 से 100 ग्राम। तो इससे ये क्लियर होता है कि ये किस इरादे से यहाँ आए हैं और इनका मोटिवेशन क्या है, और ये किस तरह से अपने आप को मोटिवेटेड रखते हैं। हमने इनके ऊपर NDPS एक्ट भी लगाया है, तो क्योंकि इन पे वो जो हमें खेप मिली है उसका, तो अब जो भी कोर्ट में जब ये केस जाएगा तो इससे भी पता चलेगा कि जो पाकिस्तानी हमारे देश में आ रहे हैं वो अपने साथ नारकोटिक्स लेके आते हैं।
As security forces chase 3 to 4 remaining terrorists believed to be hiding in the region, police have stepped up their crackdown on local support systems. 30 individuals have already been booked under the Public Safety Act for aiding terrorists. The strong action is part of a broader counter-terror strategy that aims for zero infiltration and zero tolerance, a message that has been echoed in multiple high-level security review meetings chaired by the Indian government this year. In parallel, the National Investigation Agency has intensified its pursuit of Pakistan-linked terror networks. Recent searches in 12 locations in Jammu targeted over ground workers associated with Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, both UN-designated terrorist organizations that operate with impunity from Pakistani soil. Seized materials have unearthed deep-rooted connections between local facilitators and Pakistani terror handlers.
90s and 2000, they used to use border guides. Amongst us, there were people who were trans-border smugglers. They were used as guides. Then now they have technology also, drones also. And as your question relates to overground workers, that is very, very important. Without support from overground workers, they cannot survive. They cannot, after all, they have to eat food. They need to escape from the security forces. All this cannot happen. They have to hide. They have to know the exact route, how to avoid security forces, because their security forces and police are also on the lookout for these people. So all this cannot happen without the help of overground workers, and that is very, very critical, where J&K police has to play a critical role.
While Pakistan continues to masquerade as a victim of terrorism on international platforms, its own intelligence agencies and military establishment remain the primary architects of regional instability. Its decades-old policy of bleeding India with 1,000 cuts has not only backfired, but it is now being decisively countered by India's ironclad resolve and sophisticated counterintelligence operations. India's focus is clear: defend every inch of its territory and ensure that no Pakistani-sponsored terrorist succeeds in spreading fear and destruction.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis of the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@nin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.